Don't miss Question Time from Belfast, where the Assembly is up and running again after the IRA began decommissioning. And on our panel, First Minister David Trimble, Sinn Féin's Martin McGuinness, SDLP Deputy Leader Breege Rogers, the author Germaine Greer, and Charles Moore, editor of the Daily Telegraph, taking questions from the audience. That's Question Time, here on BBC One after the news.
This is BBC One in London and the South East. Now the news at 10 o'clock with Michael Buerk and Gillian Joseph.
The noose is tightening tonight around the Taliban and Osama bin Laden. The Americans are targeting the caves where they think bin Laden is hiding. British victims of the New York attacks are remembered at Westminster Abbey. The giant American firm teetering on the edge of history's biggest bankruptcy. Diane Pretty has lost her legal battle over her right to die. And no breakaway league, but as football's television bubble burst.
Later on BBC London, an unwanted seasonal gift. Thousands of South West train passengers could face Christmas strikes. We expose the alarming holes in the system that puts supply teachers into classrooms.
Good evening. The war in Afghanistan is moving tonight to what the Pentagon is calling endgame. Northern Alliance forces are reported to be preparing to move on the Taliban's last stronghold of Kandahar. And more American troops have been flown into the north of the country to concentrate on a cave complex near Jalalabad, where they think Osama bin Laden may be hiding. Tonight, though, the Pentagon warned that although the Taliban was fractured, some units were getting ready to fight to the death.
The helpless victim of a war we cannot see. An old lady literally pushed over the border in a wheelbarrow to the safety of Pakistan. No wonder these refugees want to flee. On the other side, in southern Afghanistan, a real battle is underway. The road from the Taliban stronghold of Kandahar is hazardous. This man was in a convoy of 11 cars when American planes suddenly began to bomb them from overhead. And Northern Alliance troops are also closing in. They left Kabul yesterday to drive south and join forces with local tribesmen. Tonight, they claimed they'd reached Kandahar and there's now fighting on the outskirts. There's no independent confirmation, but the Americans too are piling on the pressure. The Pentagon released new footage of Tuesday's bombing of a Taliban compound, as well as an aqueduct and tunnel complex. A Taliban spokesman admitted there'd been countless deaths. The Pentagon claimed their control was now fractured.
There are some commanders who are negotiating for surrender of their forces. There are others whom might take Mullah Omar's orders literally and intend to dig in defensively and fight to the death. That's a possibility. But there are other units that are severed from competent or legitimate leadership that they would look to.
The American forward operating base they've established at Dulangi will soon have 1,000 troops in place. Their aim is not to send US troops into Kandahar, but rather to seal it off, to stop Taliban leaders escaping and cut off their resupply routes. But it's a network of caves south of Jalalabad which could provide the biggest challenge for the Americans near the village of Tora Bora. It is, by all accounts, an impenetrable underground fortress extending more than 1,000 feet into the mountains, equipped allegedly with air shafts, its own hydroelectric supply, and space for 1,000 fighters. If bin Laden is indeed hiding in the cave complex of Tora Bora, he may prove difficult to dislodge. These mountains are pockmarked with caves. Any American hunt on the ground for Osama bin Laden could be lengthy and dangerous. And there's always a chance the rumours he's here are part of a cunning deception, and he's already slipped the noose and is out of the country. Bridget Kendall, BBC News.
Rival Afghan groups say they hope to reach agreement in the next 2 days on the country's future. The makeup of the transitional government is still being discussed, but the Northern Alliance says it will now accept an international peacekeeping force. The talks near Bonn in Germany will continue into the weekend.
They've been talking behind closed doors for 3 days now, and they're starting to get results. No formal deal has been reached. The negotiations could yet stumble and fail. But from the key delegation today, there was a change of heart. Yesterday, they opposed peacekeepers. Now, the Northern Alliance says it'll accept an international force.
Any initiative that will guarantee peace and security in our country, we will support that. I hope that the misunderstanding that took place yesterday will not happen again, and that has been resolved now.
And the four groups are moving towards compromise on other issues, the shape of an interim council, the role of Afghanistan's former king, Zahir Shah.
He wants to go as a father and as a leader, as a unifying force. And I think that's a very important role for him to play. And I believe if we want permanent peace in Afghanistan, it's very important to have His Majesty in that position.
And you want him to go there as soon as possible?
Immediately.
But everyone knows there's a lot of distrust and decades of history still to overcome. So the UN spokesman issued his daily note of caution.
It can take one little mistake to slip back into the abyss, or one courageous, momentous move forward to create the momentum to rebuild Afghanistan.
The delegates here say they're more optimistic because they've discovered more common ground. But there's still a lot left to cover in a short space of time. These talks to decide the future of Afghanistan are expected to finish on Saturday. Philippa Thomas, BBC News, Königswinter.
The Queen and the Prime Minister joined more than 1,000 people at a service of remembrance at Westminster Abbey for the British victims of the terrorist attacks on the 11th of September. Around 80 Britons were killed in the attacks, and many of their relatives helped to plan the service. James Robbins reports.
This was the first national service bringing together all the 80 British families who felt that they were now ready to share their appalling loss in a collective act of remembrance. George Bush Sr. represented his son, today's American president, and it was an Anglo-American family who represented the collective loss. As the Queen entered the Abbey, Kayleigh and Kyle Madison were there with a posy of flowers. They have their American mother Maureen, but not their father Simon from Harlow in Essex. He was working at the World Trade Center on that dreadful day in September. This was a service watched on both sides of the Atlantic as two countries continue to fight a war against terror provoked by the attacks. But above all, this was a service for the British families. Asked what they would like to hear today, many had requested a favourite poem.
Remember me when I am gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go, yet turning stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me.
As well as remembering, in his sermon, the Archbishop of Canterbury condemned the barbarity of September the 11th. It had nothing to do, he said, with any of the world's true faiths. And it was in that spirit British representatives of world religions committed themselves to justice and to peace.
From the Jewish synagogues, I, Alan, a Jew.
From the mosques, I, Fatima, a Muslim.
Affirm with my brothers and sisters our belief in...
But the climax of this service was the moment of individual tribute to each of the dead. This is Britain's memorial to innocent victims, originally unveiled 5 years ago. Today it was the focus for so many families who say they hope now to let go a little and live again. However difficult that is after the 11th of September. James Robbins, BBC News.
And there'll be more on Afghanistan later in the programme. But first, other news. There are fears for hundreds of jobs in Britain after the virtual collapse of one of America's biggest corporations, Enron. The energy company is on the edge of bankruptcy after the failure of a rescue deal yesterday. Stephen Evans reports from New York on the fall of a multinational giant.
There's been sleet and rain at the Enron headquarters in Texas. America's 7th biggest company is all but bankrupt, owing $4 billion now, $8 billion soon. Its shareholders have seen their wealth, some for retirement, slashed to less than 100th its previous worth.
I just can't believe that it could disappear this quickly. And on top of everything else, the worst part for me personally is I bought some stock for my 10-year-old granddaughter, and that just kills me.
Enron dominated the global trade in gas. It set up subsidiary companies that hid its huge debt. When customers and banks found out, stock in the company plummeted. A year ago, Enron shares cost $90 each. Today, it's just above 40 cents. At the London headquarters opposite Buckingham Palace, the 1,400 staff were apprehensive. Enron also owns Wessex Water.
Ken Lay, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Enron.
There's political fallout. Enron's chief executive, Kenneth Lay, is a close confidant of President Bush. Enron helped Mr. Bush win the presidency. Enron's fall since the disclosure of its debt is a bolt from the blue.
To see a company that's been named the most innovative company on the globe for the last 4 years straight by certain publications, and to see them unwind so quickly and so abruptly is stunning. And I think the lesson is that your integrity is everything.
In corporate America, Enron was the brightest star. Its failure, what would be the biggest bankruptcy in history, came because it thought it had found novel ways of raising huge sums of money. It hadn't. In short, it was too clever for its own good. Stephen Evans, BBC News, New York.
A Palestinian suicide bomber has killed himself tonight and 3 others on a bus in Israel. The bus was travelling close to a military base near the northern coastal town of Hadera. The attack came as Palestinian officials met the American peace envoy Anthony Zinni for talks.
Another night of death in Israel. Emergency workers sift through the wreckage left behind by one more Palestinian suicide bomber. More families who will grieve, more damage to America's bid for a truce. The wounded being brought in, passengers who'd just been trying to get home, like this woman who stared the bomber in the face but saw no hint of what he had in mind. Israel's leader told of the bloodshed tonight as he headed for Washington, earlier holding fast to his demand, first quiet, then talks.
I made it very clear from the first day that the government that I lead will not negotiate under pressure of terror and violence.
Those words not making things any easier for America's new envoy, Anthony Zinni, paying his respects earlier at the Holocaust Museum. Day 4 of his mission and the death toll keeps rising. The new victims include 2 Palestinians killed today by Israeli troops. No sense of hope around this lonely figure now. Getting a truce here was never going to be easy. Every attack increases the need and reduces the chances. Israel's leader will have talks in Washington with President Bush, but America's new peace mission has gotten off to a terrible start. Orla Gearan, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Here, Diane Pretty, who's terminally ill with motor neurone disease, has lost her legal battle to take her own life with the help of her husband. Mrs. Pretty wanted a guarantee that her husband wouldn't be prosecuted, but the law lords unanimously dismissed her appeal. She says she'll now go to the European courts.
Weakened by her condition, but not dispirited by the rain, Diane Pretty made the journey to London. Her husband constantly by her side, he's been asked to do the unthinkable, to help her to die, though the Suicide Act makes this a crime, and that's why they're fighting. But the law lords today ruled that the legislation as it stands doesn't breach Diane's human rights.
The question is whether the Convention entitles the appellant to the relief which she seeks. I feel bound to hold that it does not. I would accordingly dismiss this appeal.
It means Diane's fought and now lost in every court in the land, but within minutes of the ruling was asked if she'd take the case to the European Court of Human Rights.
Yes. She wants to go.
Will she go in person?
Yes, she wants to go herself if she can.
But a hearing in Strasbourg could take time. Amongst other things, this complex case has been about Diane's right to life and desire to choose when she dies. That she's forced to live like this, Diane feels, amounts to degrading treatment, which will inevitably get worse. The Law Lords rejected this, a relief to many who feared that a decision in her favour could have left others who are terminally ill vulnerable to abuse. This has been an extraordinary case. Diane Pretty had wanted her legacy to have been that she'd helped bring about a change in the law. But tonight, there's no immediate prospect of that. Karen Allen, BBC News, Westminster.
The government has been defeated in the House of Lords over its new anti-terrorism, crime and security bill. The bill was rejected by 149 votes to 139. It was designed to strengthen powers for the clampdown on international terrorism, but Conservative peers said it wasn't far-reaching enough, since it only related to events after September the 11th. The trial of the man accused of causing the Selby rail crash has heard a tape of the 999 call he made just before the accident. The prosecution says that Gary Hart from Strubby in Lincolnshire fell asleep at the wheel of his Land Rover, which veered onto the railway line. Mr. Hart denies causing the death of 10 people by dangerous driving.
Sarah Louise Pratt was the operator who answered Gary Hart's emergency call. On the recording played in court, he could be heard telling her his Land Rover was stuck on the railway line. Then, as the passenger express could be heard striking the vehicle, she said, "Oh my God." Mr. Hart told her the front of the Land Rover had been ripped off. The families of the victims were warned they might like to leave the court before the recording was played. They chose to remain and listen. After the express was derailed, it collided with a freight train. The court heard a statement from Andrew Hill, one of 2 drivers travelling in the freight train's front cab. Mr. Hill said the express train came towards them off the track but still travelling fast with sparks flying from its wheels. He said one of the rear coaches jackknifed in front of the freight train. He could remember the blue GNER livery. He said it seemed to fill his view. He felt he could reach out and touch it. And then the collision occurred. The next thing Mr. Hill knew, he was trapped beneath the wreckage, choking and in darkness. The court also heard evidence about the speed at which Gary Hart was driving immediately before the crash. A police driver who retraced part of his route with an escort and with authority to exceed the speed limits said he'd taken longer than Mr. Hart to cover the distance. Mr. Hart left court with his wife Elaine. The trial will continue tomorrow. Kevin McKay, BBC News at Leeds Crown Court.
The chairman of Football League clubs today rejected plans for a breakaway Phoenix League, which could have seen them playing top teams from Scotland. But they say they may have to restructure the present setup. Money is behind the pressure for change, and there have been warnings from TV companies that football's income will fall sharply. Our business editor, Jeff Randall, reports.
Here's Sheringham and Rebroff.
With big spenders Fulham and Tottenham battling tonight for a quarter-final place in the Worthington Cup, the pressure's on to deliver success. In recent years, English football has earned a fortune from TV games, but with most clubs still losing money, fans are wondering what's happened to all that cash.
Where did it all go? Very simple. It went into the pockets of players and it went into the pockets of agents. Agents are cleverer than players, obviously, and agents work out how much a club's got to spend, and agents push clubs to the maximum of what they can spend.
It's television that clubs have to thank for pouring about £3 billion into the game over the past 8 years. BBC, ITV and Sky all bid aggressively for the best matches. But ITV boss Stuart Prebble warns they may have paid too much. And with commercial TV suffering a slump in advertising, broadcasters insist that football will get much less when new contracts are signed.
What was paid was really at the top end of what's possible. I have little doubt that next time around people will be taking a colder, more sober look at what they are able to bid, and then the overall amounts that will be bid will be considerably lower than they were this time.
Come on, Reds, can we finish with a goal?
If TV revenues are cut, all clubs will suffer. But for those like Macclesfield Town, which has the lowest average gate of any English league team, budgets could be stretched to breaking point. Macclesfield owes its banks nothing, but some weaker rivals are up to their ears in debt.
I think a number of clubs will be under considerable amount of pressure, particularly from the banks. Commitments have been made, and a lot of them are based on the TV deal and the ongoing TV deals. So a lot of clubs will struggle, and I think if one goes down, there'll be more than one who follow.
Relegation's bad enough, but extinction is every fan's nightmare. Having overpaid for football rights last time, the TV companies are determined not to make the same mistake again. That could mean all clubs learning to live on a lot less money. Not a problem for some of the Premiership big boys, but for the tiddlers in Division 3, a real headache. Jeff Randall, BBC News, Macclesfield.
Nearly £1.5 billion will have been paid out by the end of the year to compensate farmers hit by foot and mouth. Government figures today show 800 farmers have received payments of between £250,000 and £500,000. 278 have received between £500,000 and £1 million, and 41 have been paid over £1 million.
Compensation is a difficult issue for farmers like Jonathan Sharp. 6 months of restrictions mean his West Yorkshire holding is full of stock that should have been sold long ago. No payout for him and not much satisfaction that he escaped and others didn't.
I have lots of people that I went to college with who have no business left, basically. Just a shell of a farm and no stock, and how they feel I can't imagine, to be honest.
In the valleys of North and West Yorkshire, tourism is important too, and there is anger that compensation has been so closely focused on farmers. But the markets in Skipton remain shut. Some accept that there have been big payouts, but farmers' leaders say the reality is communities and businesses still in desperate need.
You can't just band around figures of £500,000, £1 million, 200,000 and say, gosh, that's an awful lot of money. Wouldn't people like to get their hands on that? You know, these are large, complex businesses that we're talking about.
Farmers say talk of compensation millionaires is unfair and misleading. Tonight, union leaders were stressing that payouts were only made when animals had to be killed, and that income levels across the industry are at their lowest point for 2 generations. Richard Bilton, BBC News, Oakworth in West Yorkshire.
Entry to all the country's national museums and galleries will be free for everyone from this weekend. The government's been hoping to do it for some time and has allocated another £30 million a year. But many newer institutions across the country fear that they'll be left behind.
The tills will soon be as outdated as the dinosaurs at the Natural History Museum in London's South Kensington. But visitors to cultural centres like Birmingham's new think tank will still have to fork out to see nationally important treasures. Here at Think Tank, there's one of the largest locomotives ever built, and there's the car which was the first one to go over 400 miles an hour, and over there, the world's oldest working steam engine. These things have all got national status, but you've still got to pay to come and see them.
What's happening is that it's focused on the nationals and mainly those in London, and the benefits, it seems to me, are going to accrue in the main to overseas tourists to the capital, and also, one might say, to the residents of South Kensington.
Not so. Our national collections have a national audience, says the Culture Secretary.
Families come to London precisely to visit the museums and galleries, and we're removing price as an obstacle to their doing so after Saturday.
But the big museums are no longer on their own. There are dozens of news centres across the country which must support themselves largely by ticket sales, and they want some government help too.
Actually, we are educational. We do think we're part of the cultural life of the nation, and education and culture do cost money. You can't run them 100% commercially without losing a lot of what you're there for, I think.
So will there now be a trickle-down factor of money going to the regional centres? There are certainly now enough of them to make a very loud noise, but that might still not be enough to get the government's attention. Rosie Millard, BBC News.
More now on the campaign against terrorism and the measures America has taken. The US Attorney General John Ashcroft has offered American citizenship to any foreigners prepared to inform on Osama bin Laden and his terror network. Stephen Sacker has been to America's largest Arab community in Dearborn, Michigan, to look at how the security crackdown is affecting them.
Another day of Ramadan fasting draws to a close. In Dearborn, Michigan, civil rights lawyer Mohammed Abed Rabo enjoys the traditional iftar family meal. But for many Muslim Americans, these are uneasy times, soured by suspicion and fear. A few hours earlier, Ahmed, a Lebanese-born engineer, visits Abed Rabo's office.
How's everything? Not too bad.
Ahmed is one of thousands of Arab men the FBI wants to interview in their dragnet investigation of the Al-Qaeda network. Already he's had several run-ins with immigration agents.
He handcuffed me so hard that as soon as he let go of my hand, I couldn't take it anymore. They started asking me, when did I leave Lebanon, Did I have any connection with any terrorist groups there?
Ahmed's is one case amongst thousands. Critics call it an outrageous example of racial profiling.
Being a suspect when you've done nothing wrong, I think that this is counterproductive. And I think by our government doing that in this country, they are further alienating Arab and Muslim Americans from the other American people. And that's very dangerous.
The truth is, Arab American communities like Dearborn are now under intense FBI scrutiny. Recently arrived young men from the Middle East are routinely hauled off for interrogation as the Bush administration continues the hunt for Al-Qaeda terrorists at home. Attorney General John Ashcroft has been accused of adopting draconian powers to combat terrorism. But today, he was playing Mr. Nice Guy, offering special visas for non-Americans who become informers.
If the information that you provide is reliable and useful, we will help you obtain a visa to reside in the United States and ultimately become a United States citizen.
But in Dearborn, the air is thick with skepticism. The massive FBI investigation hasn't yet led to a major breakthrough. U.S. officials say Al-Qaeda agents are still at large, and Muslims in America continue to fear for their civil rights. Stephen Sacker, BBC News, Dearborn.
OK, it's just gone 25 past 10. I'll be back a little later with an update on the day's headlines. But now we join our news teams across the UK.